Good day, everyone. We are now in the last part of the different kinds of obligation, pure and conditional, Article 1187 to 1192. So we're in the part 3, last part of chapter 3. Okay, section 1, section 1 of chapter 3. Okay, let's start. Okay, guys, we are in 1187, Article 1187 of the New Civil Code. The effect of a conditional obligation to give once the condition has been fulfilled shall retroact to the day of the constitution of the obligation. Nevertheless, when the obligation imposes the reciprocal prestation upon the parties, the fruit and interest during the pendency of the condition shall be deemed to have been mutually compensated. If the condition is unilateral, the debtor shall appropriate the fruit and interest received upon, unless from the nature and circumstances of the obligation, it should be interfere that the intention of the person constituting the same was different. In obligations to do and not to do, the court shall determine in each case the retroactive effect of the condition that has been fulfilled with. Okay, what retroactive effect of fulfillment of suspensive condition? Okay, number one is the obligation to give. Once the condition is fulfilled, its effect shall retroact to the day from the obligation was constituted. Reason behind is the condition is only an accidental element of a contract. An obligation can exist without being subject to a condition had the parties known beforehand that the condition would be fulfilled. They would have bound themselves under the pure obligation, has no application to a real contract. Okay. An example of this is that for example, January 20, S agreed to sell his parcel of land to B for 50,000. Should be lost in a case involving a recovery of another parcel of land. On April 10, S sold this land to C. B lost the case on December 4. Before December 4, B had no right to demand the sale of land by S. When the when the condition, however, was fulfilled in December 4, it is as if B is entitled to the land beginning January 20. Hence, as between B and C, B will have the better right over the land. It is acquired, however, under the property registration decree that the promise of S be annotated on the back of the certificate of title of the property to be binding against the third person like C. If the land was sold to by B to D in May 20, D will still have a better right as against C, since the sale by B will be uh, considered valid. Okay. Second is that the obligation to do or not to do. No, this is no fixed this is no fixed rule is provided. The court the courts are empowered by the use of sound discretion and bearing in mind the intent of the parties to determine in each case the retroactive effect of the suspensive condition that has been complied with. Okay. Next is the retroactive effect of as to the fruits and interest in obligation to give. The reciprocal obligation, there is no retroactive because the fruit and interest received during the pendency of the condition are deemed to have been mutually compensated. In unilateral obligations, there is no usually retroactive effect because they are gratuitous. Parang pagkukusang loob niyang binigay. Suppose, example, let's give an example for ano muna, the retroactive effect of the ret- the reciprocal obligations. Let's give an example. In this instance, under this topic, when B lost the case on the court on December 4, S should deliver the land to B as payment for it. 550,000 yung case natin kanina. If S does not have to give the fruit received from the land before December 4, and B is not obliged to pay the legal interest of the price since the fruit and interest received are deemed to have been mutually compensated. Yung pangalawa, yung unilateral obligation. Suppose in the same example, yung promise ni S has to donate a parcel of the land to B. Upon the fulfillment of the condition, S has to deliver the land, but he has the right to keep to himself all the fruits and interest he may have received during the pendency of the condition, that is from January 20 to December 4, unless the contrary intention of S may be impaired, as when it is stipulated that once the condition is fulfilled, S shall render the an accounting of fruits received during the pendency. Okay. Article 1188. The creditor may, before the fulfillment of the condition, bring the appropriate action of the preservation of his right. The debtor may recover what during the same time he has paid by mistake in case of suspensive condition. So here the right the right pending fulfillment of suspensive condition. Number one is the right of the creditor. Number two, the right of the debtor. Okay. The right of the creditor, he has to take or bring the appropriate action for a preservation of his right, as the debtor may render nugatory and the obligation upon the happening of the condition. Thus, if may if he may go to the court to prevent the alienation or concealment of the property of the debtor, has bound himself to deliver or to have this right annotated on the title of the property in the registry of deeds. Okay. Number two, yung right of the debtor, he is entitled to recover what he has paid by mistakes prior to the happening of the suspensive condition. Okay, the right is granted to the debtor because the creditor may or may not be able to fulfill the condition imposing, and hence it is not certain that the obligation will arise. There is a case of solutio indemnity, which is based on a principle that no one shall enrich himself at the expense of another. Okay. Under Article 1189, medyo mahaba-haba to, no? As reading lang naman to. It is a reading, no? For your reading. When the condition, you just read that. And then we'll discuss the requisite for application of Article 1189. So 1189 applies only if the obligation is a real obligation. Number two, the object is a specific or determinate thing. Okay. Number three, the obligation is subject to suspensive condition. The condition is fulfilled and there is a loss, deterioration, or improvement of the thing during the pendency of the happening of the condition. Okay. Kinds of loss in civil law may be physical loss when the thing perishes, as when a house is burned and reduced to ashes. So legal loss when the thing goes out of the commerce, or when the thing here herefore is legal before becomes illegal. And then civil laws, when once you said civil laws, when a thing disappear as such as a way of its existence is unknown. Example is a particular dog has been missing for some time. Yan, ganyan example ng civil laws. Or even if known, it cannot be recovered. Kahit alam mo kung ano yung nawala, pero it cannot be recovered. However, as a matter of fact, um, a particular ring is dropped from a ship of the sea. Example yon. Or of law, a property is lost through prescription. Okay, that's an example. What else? The rules in case laws, each, etc., or things during independency of the suspensive condition. The loss of a thing, the loss of thing without debtor's fault. Example, X obliged himself to give Y his car worth 100,000. If Y will sell X property, the car was lost the X X fault. The obligation is extinguished and X is not liable if Y, even if Y sell the property. A person, as a general rule, is not liable for fortuitous event. Okay, the loss of thing through the debtor's fault. Example, in the same example, if the loss occur because of the negligence of X, Y will be entitled to demand damages. So, Article 1170, ang example doon, um, yung 100,000 plus incidental damages, if any. And then, the deterioration of a thing without debtor's fault. I think deteriorates when its value is reduced or impaired with or without fault of the debtor. For example, the car figures in a accident has a result with which its windshield was broken and some of its paint were scratches with the fault of X, thereby reducing its value of 90,000. Y will have to suffer the deterioration, impairment, or amount of 10,000 under 1174. Okay, next is the deterioration of the thing through debtor's fault. Example, the recession of an obligation with damages. In this case, X is liable to pay 100,000 the value of the car before the deterioration plus incidental damages if any, or the fulfillment of the obligation with damages. The right of X is bound to Y to give the car and pay 10,000 plus incidental damages if any. Okay, number five, the improvement, the improvement of thing by nature or by time. Example, suppose the market value of a car increase. Who gets the benefit? The improvement shall inure the benefits of Y in such a way, in such as Y would suffer in case of deterioration of the car through gratuitous event. It is but fair and should be compensated in case of improper improvement of the car. Number six, the improvement of a thing at expense of the debtor. Example, during the pendency of the condition, X had the car painted and its seat cover changed as at this at his expense. In this case, X will serve the right granted to a unsatis un, usurpatory with respect to the improvement made by the thing held usufruct. Okay. Number Article 1190. Article 1190. Just read that article, and then what will be the effect in the fulfillment of resolutory condition. Kanina, effect of suspensive condition. Okay. In obligation to give, there is a return of stat status quo. Okay. Number two, or letter B, the obligation of mutual restitution or is absolute. In case of a thing to be returned is legally in the possession of the third person who did not act in bad faith, the obligation to give subject to suspensive condition, the retroactivity admits of exemption according to whether the obligation is bilateral or unilateral, or um, letter E, if the condition is not fulfilled, the right acquired by a party become vested. And number two, in obligation to do or not to do. Okay, 1191, just read the provision and we'll go to the kinds of obligation. Kinds of obligation according to personal obligation, they are unilateral, when one of the parties is obliged to comply with the prestation, and bilateral, when both parties are mutually bound to each other in words. Both parties are debtors and creditors of each other. Bilateral becomes bilateral obligation may be reciprocal to non-reciprocal. Okay. It may be unilateral and bilateral. Pag bilateral, it can be retroactive obligation or non-retroactive obligation. Article 1192. 1192, in this case, both the parties have committed a breach of obligation and liable to the first category shall be aqua, ano, equitably tempered by the court if it cannot be determined which which of the party have. Okay, this is merely a reading paper or application. Indeed, uh, what would be where both parties guilt of breach of contract. Okay. The above article contemplates two situations. The first is the impactor known or B. The first impactor cannot be determined. Okay, uh that's composed our or that's make up our section chapter 3 title 3 section 1 uh, title 3 and part 1, 2, 3 of the um, of ano yun, pure and conditional obligation. Thank you guys for watching. Okay.